Welcome to Community Crossfire, another point of view. I'm your host, Norman Oliver. Ladies and gentlemen, have an exciting show as always. My guest this evening will be none other than Senator Bobby Marshall.
Thank you, Norman. Glad to be here.
And before I go to the senator, as I always do, I talk about a few issues. First of all, I want to wish everyone a happy Father's Day. You know, it's amazing to me on Father's Day, you know, you can get in every restaurant. You can eat. On Mother's Day, you can't even get a reservation. It would take you 10 years to get a reservation. Like fathers don't pay no bills, like we do nothing. You know, I mean, on Mother's Day, you get balloons, you see flowers. On Father's Day, it's like, everybody's sleeping in.
It's a big anniversary and a celebration everywhere, worldwide.
A couple of issues I want to talk to before I get to the senator. First of all, I want to give a congratulations to Delaware State University. I think Dr. Harry Williams is doing an incredible job. It just goes to show when you have a good board and when you have a good leader, the first thing is a good leader. And the leadership that Dr. Harry Williams is showing is incredible. I mean, we just purchased the Sheraton Suites, 15-year lease, 2-year option. Dr. Harry Williams, I just hope Delaware State can keep this guy. That's the kind of job he's doing. Then we just got Mike Castle on the board, a former governor, former congressman, and probably, depending on how you would flip the coin, could have been a U.S. senator. Whew, ladies and gentlemen, I got a lot of phone calls. So I have to deal with this issue. I got a lot of phone calls and out of Texas. If you got an opportunity to read today's paper about connections. First of all, not that I believe everything that's written in the newspaper, because the news journal chased me around like they were stalkers. You know, I'm just glad that they passed the civil union bill, civil marriage bill, because them guys were like chasing me, Chris Barris and those guys. I'm like, man, yo, I'm not into guys. You know, then you had your boy Mark, you know, then Tom Wagner, these guys chasing me around. So now we got that behind us. Let me break a few things down, because people were talking to me about the council people. If I was council person, Hanifa Shabazz, and by the way, all these are my friends, Darius, Hanifa, and Mike Brown, and I don't know Kathy McKay. So let me break this down for the people who are listening. First of all, and Senator, you're not a part of this conversation unless you want to join in, because you and I talk about jobs. But first of all, if I was Councilwoman Shabazz, who's a friend, if a guy came and asked me a question about somebody urinating in the parking lot, a business that I own, I would say I would check into it. I don't know what she said, but the paper, you know, and again, we don't know if the paper is true or not, said that, you know, she said, well, how do you know it's them? And how you know it's not them? You feel me? So it's a two-edged sword. And just by her constituent service, I would be surprised if she made that comment, but if she did, and I know Dennis Sullivan, Dennis is a good guy, I think I wouldn't say that. If I was City Councilman Mike Brown, and again, I don't think Mike Brown is working for him anymore. I don't know if I would use my influence, because sometimes it's just perception. It may not be reality. It could be perception. I don't know if I would have wrote a letter, because I got to, you know, and I said this last week, Senator, that, you know, you got to walk on eggshells sometimes, and especially people, and it seems to me, let me back up for a minute. It seems to me that somebody's dropping dimes, because that article was too in detail. So somebody's snitching on somebody. Somebody's telling on someone to make them look bad. You've been around long enough. That is not just a regular article, ladies and gentlemen. If I was Darius Brown, first, that's Mike Brown. Now let me break down Darius, then I'm going to go through the whole article. Darius Brown got to be like James Brown. He got to be a bad dude. I don't know, and I don't know if you could be a lobbyist, a registered lobbyist and an elected official. I've never heard of that before. Like you see Terry Spence and all those guys down there lobbying, but they retired. How do you be Darius, from you, but Darius, you're a little better than me. You know people in high places. I don't know how you do both without. Look, it could not. You may have done nothing wrong, but the perception, because you have access to people that the average person don't have as an elected official, right? And to
Correct.
be a lobbyist and to be an elected official, I've never heard that. So Darius, you might be the baddest guy in the history of America if you could remain a lobbyist and elected official. Kathy McKay. You know, Senator, again, I don't want to get you in this conversation, but how does a person get that kind of money? Now, I'm a capitalist. You know, I believe in the American dream, so I'm not knocking her. I don't care if she gets $300 million, $400 million. But was that a no-bid contract? Because when they said I had a no-bid contract for like $60,000 for 4 years, I made like $3,000. These people walking around with, Tom Wagner's chasing me, knocking on my door. This lady says, this is what it says in the paper. How do you get $11.9 million and say, well, I only had 2 weeks to hire 250 people? Do you know what I can do with $11 million? Man.
A lot of good.
Man, a lot of good. I can hire the whole city. So I want to talk more about this whole connection. Then they got people dying. I mean, this, and again, I'm not beating up on Kathy McKay. I guess that's her name because I don't know her. She sounds like a bright person. And I think that we need this kind of stuff in our communities because they're not going to have it in Greenville, Centerville, none of them other neighborhoods. And I don't know if I want it around me. I think that it's a need for it. My office is in the neighborhood. But again, how do certain people, and I've been arguing about this, Senator, forever, how do certain people get certain kind of monies and certain people don't? It's kind of weird, right? All right, well,
I'll make a brief comment.
Go ahead.
Connections and the human service work that the organization does is a vital need in our community. But I think for a variety of reasons that we're being educated to by the News Journal, many levels of government will need to take, primarily the city government, will need to take a closer look at their organization and funding issues. But they do provide a vital human service. And the elected part, the elected officials, they are, as with members of the state legislature, we are part-time citizen legislators, and we are entitled to earn a job and a career in another area. So I'm not, again, I've read what you've read, and I'm not too convinced yet of a position, but I think the News Journal and their investigative team, I mean, usually they're fair and reasonable, but they tend to exaggerate at times. And that's unfortunate because if you're in the target of that investigation or that public comment, you become very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I've been through it, and I've been through it and understand the process. And I think that those, if they're on high ground at Connections and they're following the best and highest principles to operate the agency, then I think they will weather the storm over time.
And my comment again, let me preface it again, Senator. I think that I think that everyone should have a right to make money, and I think that I said that. I'm about capitalism, about progress. You know what I mean? I would never come on this show and knock anyone for making money. I think that she's probably a bright person for doing that. But my point is, if she's making somebody say, okay, from the state, here's $11.9 million without no comment, and you go into the prison system and do mental care, I mean, there's a lot of people out here. From my understanding, that they're even taking the KEY program, that guys like, I know Ron Beard and Pastor D and other guys who've been working in the KEY program, even Dougie Pettiford, unless these people are making $100,000, if you do the math, something is incredibly wrong. And I mean, my conversation is not really to get on Connections the whole night, but also, if I'm just using me as an example, if our agency looks to get $2,000, we're scrutinized to the higher waters. And you're talking about $11.9 million? Dude, come on, man.
I mean, we agree. And I know when you mentioned those individuals that are committed to public service but not elected office, and you mentioned Pastor D, who's had an outstanding career and turned his life around. I mean, I think they are role models that we need more of. And we may transition into that on job creation.
Yeah, and and a lot of it's really about the system. It's not the person. You understand my point? I mean, like you have, and I've had these arguments. And I'm glad we're talking about this because you and I could dialogue. You and I talk about a lot of things. What I'm saying is the system kind of blocks certain folks out who are out here doing some of the same work. But if you have a board of directors where you have judges, you have lawyers, you have bankers, you have boom, 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 you can have access You understand my point? And I'm not knocking access because I have access sometimes, but I don't have access to $11.9 million.
You know, Norm, I've never knocked academic degrees and achievement. I think that, you know, if you have that goal and you have a career path and you do your best and you follow best practices of management and providing human services, you've earned it. But also believe what George Bernard Shaw once said and wrote, that common sense is instinct, enough of it is genius. And if, you know, the Pastor D's of the world and others have the understanding and could be invaluable in a connection with government and with providing the right services to people because they understand it best than a PhD. Not that a PhD can't have the background and be there on the street, but there are others who they may have been convicted of a felony and made a mistake or two, but they're back and they could be the most effective role models in our community.
And again, you made a good point. I mean, even like I said, if you read the article, because you and I have been through this, somebody leaked information because they didn't have to write that. And secondly, the three council people that I'm mentioning, they are friends, and I think that they all three do a lot of good.
They're all
they do
good people
and, they
and
do
outstanding public servants.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about, because now that we're talking about jobs, I think this is a great segment, right? I was reading, and the reason why I brought you on, and I think that you've been doing an incredible job of trying to create jobs. And I think that I've been hammering away on this. And a couple things you got going on. You have a jobs bill where it's really like a tax of putting the money in a certain pot where we could create more jobs, like a construction, bridge. Would you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, one thing, I hope that all of Wilmington survived all the heavy rains. You know, before we get on to that serious subject, I know that the St. Anthony's Festival and many ethnic festivals are in and around Wilmington this time of year, and I know the August Quarterly is coming up, and we all look forward to it, and I hope that they survive and don't get, you know, the rain conditions, because that'll be the 200-year anniversary for that event. But having said that, on the community side, Delaware's economy is stagnant. We read recently that we are 47th in the United States of America on job growth. The governor, the legislature, I mean, we've tried and we continue to try to create new employment opportunities to attract, retain companies and jobs that are here in Delaware, but we need to do more. And what I've done is assemble a blue-collar task force in a joint resolution passed by the Senate and the House and signed by the governor. And it will take the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the private sector and summon that group to several public hearings, subcommittees, and look to a preliminary report in December that hopefully could trigger an economic development package in January, supported by the governor, the legislature, and the private sector, that could, I mean, we're hoping could somehow jumpstart an economy. And the most severe affected in the downturn and the meltdown that really began back in 2004 and 5 are blue-collar workers. I mean, they are suffering the most, construction workers. So I'm hoping that with that idea and task force, and then creating, well, I have a bill in, and it sparked hardly any public interest within the legislature here late in June, but it will create a Delaware Works Trust Fund, and it could create. And, you know, the legislature at times gets stuck in that, you know, let's provide an economic development plan for 1 year. The bill would provide and it sparks some controversy, but we'll go into the practical side of what it means to a Delawarean with an automobile. It could provide in a 10-cent a gallon gasoline tax increase. For the average, you know, most people who drive, well, some have no car. Others may do 4,000 miles a year. The average driver will do about 10,000 miles a year. If you do that and you add 10 cents to the cost of a gallon of gasoline, it would cost you, the driver, about $50 a year. Less than $5 a year.
Let me stop you for 1 second.
And I, well, go ahead, Norm.
No, I just want to stop you.
Pick it up.
No, I just want to stop you for a second. A couple of things that struck me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been trying to get someone on here to talk about job creations and economic development, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about. Mm-hmm. What I didn't know was that we were number 47 in job creation. Did you say that?
Correct.
And also, what I hear you're trying to do is create jobs for blue collar people. And I mean, like, this is the first time I've been hearing this. I mean, and I think that people need jobs. Let me ask you let me piggyback on this, right? Mm-hmm. When you talk about creating jobs, we talked about felons. How would that affect folks who are felons who are looking for jobs? Can they apply for some of those jobs, or is that a whole different subject that you haven't even explored?
To the opposite.
Okay.
If the 10-cent gasoline tax were adopted by the legislature and the governor in the closing days of the legislative session, we could take that 10 cents, which equates to $50 million in revenue a year. We go to the bond market, we go to Wall Street, where interest rates are at a record low. I mean, we, the taxpayer, that's you, me, and the gentleman on the camera, would pay record low interest for a bond that would be repaid in 20 years. Mm-hmm. We're looking at likely creating 3,000 to 5,000 construction and other related jobs in Delaware's economy.
Wow.
Now, the program would run over 5 years. It would add about $140 million a year in our construction economy, in the schools, roads, you name it. It would provide that funding, and a segment of that money, 25%, would be available to local government or nonprofit community-based organizations. Now, they could go in and with a 50% match of our 50%, they could generate between those two groups, if they choose to, between $300 million over the 5 years. So Wilmington, Dover, Georgetown, every little town in between, Newark, Ellesmere, if they decided, and I had testimony at a public hearing, Dave Bonar, who's president of the Dover City Council, he testified that they have $100 million in public works projects waiting they don't have money for. Wilmington would find the same, Georgetown, Millsboro.
So
it would be an enormous public works project that would hire thousands of Delawareans. And to answer your earlier question, most of the jobs are in construction, and ex-felons could be applied. I mean, if they apply, they're either a union member, apprenticeship, or they're working for a non-union contractor who bid on the project and needs to pay the prevailing wage, they would be able to be hired. Laborers, carpenters, electricians.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, I have Senator Robert Marshall joining me. And ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to the conversation, this is one of the first times we've had someone come on and talk about jobs, someone to come on and talk about economic development, someone to come on and talk about economic improvement. I hope you're listening. I mean, these are the conversations that I've been trying to have. For a couple years. So these are the kind of conversations that we should start having. I mean, I'm all down for, singing Kumbaya. I'm all down for marching, but we gotta get jobs. Why are you marching? You ain't got no money. I mean, I'm down for the social, and people like laughing. I'm serious. And that's why I keep telling you, some of these people holler about leadership. Don't walk the other way. Run. Because they not leading me a damn thing. I'm running from them. Let me change the subject another, because you got a couple things. You had a couple things that was going on. Let's talk about the port. I thought that you were very instrumental in the Kinder Morgan, again, fighting for the unions are fighting for the small guys. And I think there was some negotiation, and you can put it in your own words. I know Julius Cephas and you worked together, and union folks, and even the governor's office. But you were looking out, to me, and you could speak for yourself, that the average worker, to keep the jobs here in the city of Wilmington. Is that correct? And what was that about?
The issue came up over a year ago about the Port of Wilmington possibly being under consideration to be privatized. Meaning, the way government works at times, we've had a shortage in revenue, and the governor and his team or others may sit down and think, well, is there an agency or a pocket of money that we can spin off into the private sector and hopefully make the dollar deal work in favor of the taxpayer? Well, when you really examine, and I took up the cause over a year ago, I looked at the blue collar jobs at the port, the people who we hire. The port is owned by the taxpayers of Delaware.
Wow.
And we have a board, a corporation that manages it, but we created it, the legislature did, and the governor back in 1994, 95. And we were at risk. When a private company, and granted, Alan Levin had the highest and best idea initially. Let's market the port and see if we can get a buyer or a leaseor who would take over the port, keep the core, right. Dole, Chiquita, all that operation, and build on the area of the port that is undeveloped and on the river. And that is a highly desirable site on the Delaware River for commerce when the Panama Canal is widened and the mega ships begin to ship cargo here. The reality, Miami through Baltimore and New York have ports that are deep enough and ready to handle the mega ships that will be bringing cargo in. We have an opportunity for a niche where hopefully we can keep Dole, Chiquita, build on that base of forklift truck drivers, and they can earn $20, $25 an hour and make a decent living and be respectable and maybe be a high school dropout, but have a work ethic and be willing to work.
And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're following the conversation. I hope you're listening. Please learn something, and that's what we try to do. It's not about crazy stuff every week. Sometimes you just have to. I think the 12-12 Club and my good friend Wayne Jefferson used to tell me, take the cotton out your ear and put it in your mouth. Just listen. What about the argument when they say that we need a private vendor to come down to keep the port running because there's just not enough revenue anymore to keep going in there?
Norman, think about the practical side of the comment you just made. Wall Street may want to advance that idea, and investors may like the idea. The reality is that the higher that our population grows, the higher consumer demand grows, the more need for product to be imported into this country and along the East Coast. We could develop a niche. I know that the governor, Alan Levin, and others have been working tirelessly to keep Dole and Chiquita, and we'll continue to do it. And I've said, whatever economic incentive I can work with the Bond Bill Committee and others to provide to keep Dole and Chiquita here and build on the core now and looking at the port over the long term, the next 10, 20 years. We need to do it now. But we need that private investor, and it could be an Asian investor, it could be a Chinese company or a Brazilian, or who knows. The world's the playground for a lot of big money today. But let someone new come in and take that piece out on the river and invest the $200 or $300 million to develop it and profit from it. But leave everything inside with Dole and Chiquita and others alone, and let us build and develop the blue collar opportunities there.
Okay, let me change the subject to another issue. You've been on the road here, and I appreciate your candor. I follow stuff, and people don't realize that I do read.
You do?
Yeah,
I didn't know
every
that.
once in a while. Every once in a while. You've been the soldier, in a sense, when it comes to minimum wage. You know, always trying to get more money for the average guy. I think that you've been an architect, I don't know, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, about 3 or 4 minimum wages going up in the state of Delaware. Why?
Oh, when you look at the importance and the value of the hourly minimum wage earner who are at the low end, I mean, think about an employee and removing the employee at the low end. I mean, in many cases, they're very bright, capable people. They may be 18, they may be, I don't know, people today go back to work at 88 part-time. I mean, they're good people, and they work for money. And the whole basis and the hope of America and Delaware and our economy is that people can work. And when they work, they have pride, they earn a paycheck, they can pay their way. And the higher the wage that we can pay the minimum hourly worker, that has an effect of a rising tide on all workers. And one thing for the public record, I'm a little disappointed that the Speaker of the House is not more aggressive and willing to listen to an increase in the hourly minimum wage. You know, it almost seemed, and I relied on the governor when he made a commitment that he would work on behalf of increasing the hourly minimum wage. And now we're in the waning days of the legislative session. The bill was amended by me to make it politically palatable for the governor and one and all to endorse and send the bill up to the governor's office. And they're all, you know, that I don't like to say it because, you know, we agree to disagree when we walk into that building.
Okay. Yeah.
But, you know, they're acting like something terrible would happen if you raise the hourly minimum wage a $0.50 effective January 1 of 14 and a $0.50, which would be a total dollar, effective January 1 of 2015.
So is that bill stalled right now?
Passed the Senate.
But it's stalled in the House.
Yeah.
So they won't even hear it.
No.
Wow. And that's the Democratic.
And you know what? The same old arguments, the same tired arguments that I listened to when the House committee had a meeting and a hearing. The same people cried when we had unprecedented economic growth and prosperity, and we brought the bill during Governor Carper's time, and they cried about, we're going to lose jobs, you know, the economy's going to be adversely affected. You know what happened? We raised the hourly minimum wage, and we had unprecedented job creation. And now some of those same interests will cry that, and guess what? They're right. But how long do you deny the low-end hourly minimum wage earner? And then you go to the waiter, the waitress, and others. I mean, they even earn under. But their gratuities hopefully, you know, help to balance it and give them an additional hourly income.
If I could be very honest, you know, because I know you. You know, what's interesting about this conversation, because you understand business. You're a business guy. You know what I mean? And not only are you a business person and understand how money rolls, you're also fighting for the less fortunate. And you very rarely see that combination. You know, usually the guy in business, right, if I could be painfully honest, the guy in business is really on the side of Delaware State, the Chamber of Commerce. You know, a guy like you, or rather than the union guy. It seems like you've been able to move in both worlds. Is that pretty accurate?
You know, I take pride in what I do. I mean, I've been through the unemployment line. You know,
that was like 90 years ago. You ain't been there a long time.
No, I haven't.
Hey, look, you ain't fall off the chair. That money you got in your pocket. You ain't been that line in a long time, man.
I've invested and I've lost money and I've made money, and I do count my blessings, and I'm good. I'm good with people,
Amen. God bless
and I
you.
have praise the Lord. But the reality is that if you've been there, you have a whole different perspective of the need.
Right.
Like, it's nice to invest and earn money and make money that you can invest, and maybe you can help people or you can help organizations. I've been blessed, you know, to be 10 terms in the state Senate. and advocate for issues that have been near and dear to the people that I represent and the people that elect me.
Senator,
I mean, I believe that's the principle. It kind of goes back to the King, Kennedy, you know, you dig in and you believe Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, same Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, you quoted someone at the beginning, so you're well-read, you know. I mean,
well, I know about that.
Yeah,
but
but every once in a while you hit me with some
not
history.
like you.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny, right? What's interesting, if you were governor, if I could just throw this out, right? What would be your economic plan? Because you've thrown out a lot of good stuff, right? And I'm just putting you on a. First of all, before I even go there, tell the people who are watching, right, a little bit about you. I mean, people who don't know Senator Marshall. I mean, like I know you. I think I know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can just talk to the camera.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I've had the honor to be in public office and to represent the state senate. You have an opportunity to meet, you know, many people throughout Delaware, Wilmington, Newcastle County, the small towns. You work with legislators who are, I mean, they're really great people, Republican and Democrat. And Norman, I'll give you a great example about the 10 cents on a gallon of gasoline. And my comment is directed more to, and I don't mean it to be partisan, but it's directed more to Senator Lavelle and the Republican caucus in the state Senate. I've talked with Republican professional people who vote in Greg Lavelle's Senate district, and they like the idea. They are not opposed to the gas tax when they hear that 3,000 to 5,000 new jobs can be created, that all of Delaware will benefit.
I don't think people are scared of taxes.
And we've had, when you go back prior to the economic meltdown, we had 15,000 to 17,000 people on an average year unemployed. Now we're up to 32,000, 33,000. We could reach 3,000 to 5,000 of that group with the 10 cents on the gas tax, and maybe trigger a, I don't know, momentum in our economy. For sure, the public works projects will do that. And they would be statewide. But I'll keep fighting and arguing by.
Well, I know you didn't come here for this, but would you take a few phone calls if somebody want to call in?
Oh, go ahead.
Put the number up. Happy. I mean, just in case. I mean, because I enjoy these kind of conversations, and you know, maybe someone else who's watching.
Well, they may disagree and want to let the world know. I don't mind.
Alvin, if you could put the number up, I appreciate it.
We're on prime time.
Yeah, well, this is
Sunday night.
this is you know, and I have an educated audience who call in.
Well, you're the blue chip entrepreneur. And
well, but it's interesting when you say that Republicans would be for a 10-cent tax.
No, I'm saying they oppose it, but Republican voters are not opposed to it.
Okay.
And
well, we want some good calls for this guy.
And this kind of economic development plan was one that Ronald Reagan, if he were around, or called Newt Gingrich, who is around, Republicans like the idea.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Norman, and good evening, Senator Marshall. Senator Marshall, I want to applaud everything you have said tonight. Your jobs program is a real good deal, and I will do everything I can to help you with that. It's exactly what we need. And again, I want to thank you for standing with us on the port and all the other issues that you have been standing with us on. You are truly a public servant, and I appreciate what you're doing. Now, would you please sign Senate Bill 33, the Manufactured Homeowners Bill? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What is the Manufactured Homeowners Bill? I'm not exactly sure.
I think we considered it and passed it, but the caller may know. More. I think it has to do with the level of rent being charged to a mobile home owner and having a level of control that landlords cannot randomly increase significantly the cost of land rent down in primarily trailer parks. So it's a good bill.
Was the Port of Wilmington a hard fight for you?
We won it, though.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Norman? And again, I want to say thank you to Senator Marshall about the Port of Wilmington with Senate Bill 3. And he's really really being very modest, Norman. He saved almost 16,000 jobs, directly, indirectly, union and non-union. And if it wasn't for him, he won't admit it, but if it wasn't for Senator Marshall, we would not be having a job today. And I've seen what he went through. And again, we owe him. This state owes him, and we definitely got to make sure he gets back reelected, because if it wasn't for Senate Bill 3, I will be looking for a job, and everybody at the port will be looking for a job today. So I just got to say, take my hat off and say thank you. And I mean, I can't thank him enough, and neither can our community and our state.
Hey, Julius, let me ask you a question. Hold for 1 second. You're the president of the union down there, right?
Yes.
Why was it some pushback even from some of your fellow workers down there at the Port of Wilmington in reference to this fight that you guys went through?
Well, what I think happened, Norman, I think that, and I don't like to speak for people, but what I think that the information was incorrect, and information changed. But I think once everybody could see what we see early on, they came aboard. You know, they came aboard. But I think in the beginning, it was told that they were going to spend $500 million. They were going to do this out here, outside the port. They were going to do it. Once they got the bid, we're not going to do this. You're only going to have a year or two for your job. If that, everything changed. So once people started realizing, okay, they started seeing the importance. I mean, we had people around this country, supporting Senator Marshall with Senate Bill 3. He's being very modest, Norman, but he did an awesome job, and we could have never done it without him.
Hey, thank you for the call, Jude. I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
No, I mean, I can't thank Julius and his union leadership enough. I mean, we dug in, and I mean, there were times there when I know he advocated and provided the leadership for the union. I did my part in the legislature and had a lot of help from a lot of good people, Senator Blevins, Henry McDowell, many others, House members that were there. But on an issue like it, when you're basically taking on Wall Street, you kind of walk ahead because you're the lead, and you look back and it's like, is anybody behind me? But in the end, the entire legislature, the governor signed a bill that allowed for a process to happen where Delaware taxpayers were protected, and we all won. So, the end result was a significant win for Delaware taxpayers across the board.
I think we've covered 5 issues tonight, and all of them were talking about jobs, how to create jobs, economic empowerment. And I think that people are embracing that, like a couple people calling and hanging up, because, they try to understand the whole gas tax thing. They try to understand the port. They try to understand what you're bringing to the table. And I think that, again, this is the first time that the city of Wilmington certainly needs money. How do you as a senator bring more resources to the city of Wilmington and Newcastle County?
I mean, again, we do. I know the mayor served in the legislature, Helene Keeley on the bond bill committee, all the delegation. I mean, we meet and talk about public policy issues of money that favorably affect Wilmington, and we work together as a team. We do disagree every now and then, but yet my focus, and I've said this to the mayor and others, are 72,000 people who live here. And we can fight, we can disagree, we can throw punches, but there's a point where you need to get on that high road
do you think,
and do what's best, for all the people in our city and our state.
I know you guys have an issue going on right now, even about bringing more casinos in the city. Do you think that'll create more jobs, or have you taken a stand on that?
Norman, I've looked at it carefully.
How you doing?
And I've been up and down on it. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm interested in knowing the position of the Black Caucus on this bill.
Which bill?
The one that Marshall is talking about.
Specifically, the one on the gas tax?
The Delaware Works Trust Fund.
That is correct.
Yeah, that bill, you would need to go to, a great public servant and political
Well,
leader Jay
have
Street.
you talked to them about it, and what are they doing about it?
I have not, but knowing Jay,
Well, why don't you?
I wait for feedback. I mean, my telephone is open, my office, and the staff there always respond. If I'm waiting to hear from the mayor or from Representative Bolden or Potter, I want to hear back from the Wilmington City Council and maybe a resolution that supports the idea of the new revenue.
I am not interested in protocol. I'm interested in getting things done.
Mr. Gilliam, let me ask you a question.
Oh, we both are.
Yeah, Mr. Gilliam, let me ask you a question. Do you think that the Black Caucus would be opposed to this or supportive, or do you? What's your take? Do you think they should be supportive or against it?
What is that?
Do you think the Black Caucus should be taking a stand on this, for or against?
Don't you think it's important enough?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, then answer. Then why aren't they? And if they aren't, why aren't they working together?
I agree with you 100%.
And then it's not who is on first base and who likes who. I don't give a damn about that. If it's important enough, don't people talk to each other?
Now, that's a good point. Thank you for your call.
I'm finished.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, thank you very much. And
but he makes a good point.
He is right on the issue, and I hope we build momentum. I mean, I think
a job bill like this. I guess what he's saying is the Black Caucus should take a stand on. I guess. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm, Senator Marshall. This is Nancy Willing. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Good.
Good evening.
I'd like to bring up House Bill 165, which will be coming through in the next week or two for the Senate's consideration. When it passed through the House...
What is House Bill 165?
It's the charter school law revision bill, and it's offering some opportunities to improve the charter law, but it also has a lot of weak points. It may or may not, well, I was just going to say that Bolden, Potter, Keeley, and other city representatives argued strongly to table it for now until it was fully considered. It's sort of going piecemeal right now. It was passed anyway, but some of the problems with city kids as far as charters is that charters represent about 10% of our school population. And a lot of that has become segregated in minority and low income out of the charter schools. And we don't think that this revision solves that problem. And it also siphons money away from the traditional public schools. So I was just hoping that if you don't know about 165, House Bill 165, that you could maybe meet with some of the city representatives and find out more about their perspectives on it, and bring that into the Senate debate.
All right, thank you, Nance.
Thank you, and I will do that. And I recently had the opportunity to tour the Kumba Academy. Mm-hmm. Outstanding. I mean, the leadership, the staff, the teachers, the kids, just an incredible experience. And you could see the value. The parents get involved, and that child, will maybe gain that momentum, that interest in learning, and it will carry on for a lifetime.
Do you think with all the charter schools popping up that's the reason why we have to have so many tax increases or from the school districts where they have referendums? Nancy, I don't know if I'm on the same point. Did you want to follow up, or were you good?
Well, just to say, we also applaud Kumba, but Stephanie Bolden made the point that it took 9 years for Kumba to fine-tune, its success. Mm-hmm. And so, if we're investing a lot of money into charters and even going into capital improvements for charters, as the traditional public schools are losing money, they're losing a lot of state money, a lot of the federal pass-through money. They're losing in other words, they have a much higher percent of people in kids in the low income or the special needs, which is more expensive to educate. And so the bottom line, you're against putting more money in charter schools. I think that the revision law is not where it should be as far to pass. It's still a lot of questions that need to be answered and fine-tuning for that law before it's passed. I'm not against charters, but I think right now piling a whole lot more money into charters, into the 10% of kids, with a lot of the charters being...
Okay. I got it. Okay.
I will take a closer look
Thank you.
at the bill. I know that 95% of the charters do outstanding work, and we've had problems with a small number, but I applaud the work they do.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Norm? This is Pastor D.
How you doing?
Senator Marshall, how you doing, sir?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
Thank you for the call. Good to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Norm, I apologize. I just walked in the door, but I was so anxious to see and hear the senator tonight. And thanks, Norm, for a show that'll make you rush home in traffic. But I don't know if you guys have discussed this issue. Today's newspaper and connections, and it ties into jobs and the availability of jobs for people in the community. Particularly, Senator Marshall, people like myself and others who have various skills and have tried to subcontract or find some way to provide services for the Department of Corrections and for the education system. And then you have an organization like Connections that seems to have just carte blanche with major money and doesn't have to jump through the hoops. We got to jump through $40 million. I got to jump through a hoop for $40 or $40,000. It's ridiculous, Senator. And you have taken up causes like this and have been very effective at speaking for the underdogs. I would suggest that this is an issue that must come to a head. It's just not fair. You know what I mean, Norm? It's not fair.
We did talk a little bit about this issue at the beginning of the show before the senator talked about the other issues. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on it.
Pastor D, I know that you do outstanding work, and I commend you. The only caution, and I think the red flag raised with Connections and the amount of the contracts is that Delaware taxpayers need to be protected, and we need accountability of public dollars. And if there are issues relating to accountability and performance, we give you the money, we have accountability and performance standards. If you perform, there should be no difficulty in negotiating new contracts. If you fail to perform, then the taxpayer needs to be protected. But I know the pastor and others do outstanding work, and maybe if you don't have that blue chip credential on your resume, should not deny you the opportunity to get public money and do good work.
But I'm not sure, and again, I don't know the lady well, but I'm not sure she has all those degrees that you're talking about. You know what I mean?
That I don't.
I'm sure. Senator, how do you hire? Let me ask you this. How do you hire 250 people in 2 weeks and do thorough, we're talking about the prison system. We're talking about an area where we can't miss the mark. How do you hire 250 people in 2 weeks and satisfy the requirements or what should be the requirements for background checks and all this kind of stuff? And then
for $11.9 million. For $11.9 million.
Now, $11.9 million. And those of us who have worked in the prison system for years with the very programs that Connections now has the contract for can't get $2 to go in. And if we do, then we're going to have to prove we got a green card or we're born in America.
Pastor, let me ask you or Norman, was there a breakdown of that $11 million, state, federal, local?
I didn't know. I think that
the
40 million they said it was federal, state, and so forth. But I think the 11 million was state.
I would be a little bit concerned if they hire 250 people within a week or two, and the only way they accomplish that goal is to go to a private employment agency and enter into a contract and just off the street send names over and bodies. I think we need to look at it. But again, I need more background. One final
question, I'll hang up and listen. You're an alumni, buddy, so I got to ask you because perhaps you got the inside scoop on this. But how does 50% or a significant percentage of the Wilmington City Council end up employed by the very agency that constituents argue against. I mean, I got no problem with them making money, but when I get scrutinized by the council for $70,000 and you get hired by an organization that's getting $40 million, $11 million hand over foot,
but I don't know if they had anything to do with that though. You know what I mean?
Well,
I think the budget that you're talking about, they have like a minimum influence over it. You know what I mean? Like, and most of the times, if you looked at it, they voted presidents. I don't have a problem with any council. Man, it's a part-time job. These people need to get it. They got to work anywhere they can work. You know? I mean, I don't even know what. We was on there paying like $18,000. Dude, you can't raise your family. 16. I forget what it was, but
it's near poverty.
You know what I mean?
You
got to work another job. So I mean, the bottom line is you can't knock these people for having another job. Again, Darius is a friend. My only one was Darius. I was like, how do you become a lobbyist? I just don't understand that. And I talked to Darius off the line on that because he's like the greatest guy in America. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Norm, and Senator, good show. Listen, my challenge is, or I would like to see the state try to be more proactive in the area of education. And what I mean by that is,
good point.
There was just a report that demonstrated that the Christina School District was discriminating against black students in their discipline practices. And they just put on a PowerPoint presentation for the city council basically outlining what their resolution agreement was with the Office of Civil Rights. My challenge is, though, is that the state just sits idly by and allows the Christina School District to basically come up with their own resolution, and there's really no effort to say, how do we avoid this from happening in the future? How do we put accountability measures in as a state to make sure that this is not happening in our school districts? And I, for one, a strong proponent of education and an advocate, I believe that that's not the only district that has transpired in. It's just the only district that has been, it's been found out. And that was because County Councilman Jay Street submitted the letter to OCR and asked for the investigation probably over a 4-year or 8-year period.
Hold on for 1 second. You know what's interesting about that? We've had Dr. Lowry, Dr. Lyles, and now Dr. Freeman. That's 3 black superintendents. I mean, why would they discriminate against black kids?
Well, here's what I tell people all the time. It's not about the administrator or the teacher, what color they are. It's about the color of the student. I myself believe that black students are discriminated against by black people just as much as white people. So it's not, to me, it's not a matter of who the person in charge is. And that's a whole other argument about why that occurs. But the reality is, black and Hispanic students are just having a hard time when it comes to discipline in the educational system. And I don't think that we should miss the ball because the fact that there's a black person or a Hispanic person at the top and they're discriminating against kids of their kind really is of no bearing for me, because I'm looking at the data and they drilled the data down and they said they measured a white student that committed a certain offense a certain time and a black student, and it found that yes, they were in fact disciplining the kids more harshly and more frequently for similarly situated offenses. So it wasn't just that they did it and they said, look, there's so many black kids get disciplined, there's a problem. They broke that information down further. And so for me, I think that it's a challenge that, number one, the community at large is not up in arms about the finding, because most people take the same approach you do and say, well, if the superintendents were black, well, how could they discriminate against black kids? But again, I don't believe the leaders are not the issue. The issue is when you have a black kid, they're having a hard time in schools getting fair discipline. So I'd like to see the state become more proactive.
And you always call in with some good stuff. Thank you as always.
Thank you. Great idea.
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing?
All right.
I've been listening to your show, and actually your show is covering, to me, everything is kind of tied in. And first of all, starting with the education piece. I agree with the gentleman. I agree with the lady who's saying, we put in all this money in the charter schools. But back when we went to school, there were no charter schools. You had your special ed, and we had teachers that supported those kids. But nowadays, you have these kids that are in special ed. They got to go to this school for 6 months, then they come back. I mean, nothing's being done. We started the busing. The kids started going out. The parents couldn't get to the school. So now you got less parent participation. Parent participation is key. Mm-hmm. Then you start talking about putting jobs on the port. They come up with all these programs. We hear about these programs on these shows like this, and I commend Talent 28 because it does. It educates the people and give them information. But we hear about the programs, but by the time the people that need these programs done, they're already filled up with people, from the buddy system and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that are going on in programs that get started, but nothing is being done. Our kids in school, especially our black males, are losing in school. They get them classified in 3rd and 4th grade now.
Yeah.
They ADD with hypertension. They're giving out disability checks to parents because the kids are ADD. All those kind of things, the community has got to come together.
Hold on for
to
1 second.
Make these things work.
I wish you had called earlier because we're running kind of late. I'm going to take one more call. I'm going to talk to Dr. Marshall. Call you the doctor now. But thank you for the call. That's what we try to do, educate people. Hey, we're going to take one call and then we're going to talk. Yeah. You and I finish it up. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, it's doing great show as always. And Senator Marshall, keep up the good work. God bless you, brother. And if he had time, Norman, to talk about the legislative responsibility agenda of a legislator, both during session and out of session, Senator Marshall could have tied up the whole show for 2 or 3 hours. The agendas, Norman, as you know, as a city council locally, it's an overwhelming agenda. But number 2, let me just say that, Norman, the problem is us. The problem is us. If we, the leadership, will not come together, Norman, and use a stick-to-it attitude no matter how busy or which direction we take off as individuals, doing our own thing, we got to come together in unity on these issues and work through these issues, tighten up and beef up our NAACP, and work together, Norman, as a leadership. If we don't do that, we will never turn the corner on this stuff.
Well, we got
never.
like a half a minute left and let the senator close it out. But you know what? You've been around a lot longer than me. Whenever that happens, we'll pop a bottle of champagne. So what else is going on, Senator? Everything good?
Everything's good. I'm looking forward to the work of the legislature between now and June 30th, wrapping up, getting a balanced budget, the bond bill and all the grant and aid, all the package so that come July 1 we can relax a day or two and go fishing or, just have a little bit of fun and then get back to work. I mean, as the former Rep Holloway said, the work really never ends. I mean,
and you know what? Talk about the obesity, and let me give Christiana School District and Bancroft, especially my good friend Butch Ingram. They got $100,000 for fitness stuff. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a quick question before we sign off. Did you see yourself running for a higher office?
No, my political.
Don't give me the political thing.
I'm up for re-election in 2014.
And then what happens after that?
And that. If I'm blessed with another term, that would be a 4-year term, and then
everybody gets guided here when they come on the show.
Everybody likes to look, and I've always had an interest and ambition in a higher office, but that may not happen, and it may be a practical decision and a political one that I make.
Because your name,
do I close the door?
But your name has been mentioned.
Your name has
been mentioned for a higher office in 2016. I mean, I'm not the first person who told you this, right? You've heard it before.
I don't seek that kind of
You don't seek it, but you've heard it.
I'm trying to get re-elected in 2014.
All right, man. Good show, man. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.